well as meet some new students along the way as well. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Pennsylvania and moved to Australia about, 13 years ago now. These pictures here are things that I like to do. One of them is Find Nemo. I've done 3 times Finding Nemo, and it's just as exciting every single time I do it. I also like to take advantage of some vacations to various places that aren't too far away from Australia, around the South Pacific and French Polynesia there. And then many a Monday morning at sunrise, you'll find me on Sydney Harbour there doing a bit of kayaking. So I like to take advantage of anything water focused and outdoors. And thankfully, Australia is a great place to do that. So today we'll talk through a little bit about where the University of Sydney is located, a bit about COVID health and safety, along with some application logistics, how to find classes you're interested in, student life and housing, and some travel tips and ideas for popular places around Australia to visit. And then, like Kelly said, we'll have plenty of time at the end to ask some questions. So Australia is quite a large place. It is landmass-wise about the same size as the continental US. So this is something to keep in mind as you're thinking about your travel plans throughout the semester. It takes about the same amount of time to fly from Sydney to Perth as it does from New York to Los Angeles. So if you want to go to Perth or the Northern Territory, best to take at least 3 or 4 nights, if not a little bit more for that trip. Whereas if you'd like to do a long weekend to say Brisbane, or Melbourne or Adelaide, you can do that in a nice long weekend as well. And we're quite fortunate at the University of Sydney to be located in a really great spot in Sydney. So you can see here, we're right at the edge of the central business district, or right in the middle of the city. But we also have our own self-defined campus with lots of green space and places to relax. So we kind of think it's the best of both worlds and where we could be located. So here on this overview, you can see the red outline in the bottom middle of the screen is our main campus. If you're staying in one of our guaranteed housing options, most of them are either on campus or right around the red on the edge. So not more than 10 to 15 minute walk at the most to the middle of campus. Lots of student-friendly suburbs around, so Glebe and Newtown, lots of cafes and restaurants. Pretty much every second restaurant in Newtown is a Thai restaurant, so you could try a different one every week and still not get through them all. But there's like live music venues, there's even a indoor mini golf pub, which is quite fun as well. But a popular question is, how long does it take to get me to the beach? You can jump on the train at Redfern, go to Bondi Junction, and then walk down the hill or take a bus, maybe half an hour, depending on the time of day. Or if you want to check out the northern suburbs beaches, you can jump on the bus or the train through the central business district, get your selfie at the Upper House or the Harbour Bridge, and then jump on the ferry around to Manly as well. So quite easy to get around anywhere you like to go in Sydney. There's also buses that go down the edge of campus and right through the middle as well. So quite convenient to get around. At the University of Sydney, we are quite a large institution. We have more than 70,000 students and about 7,500 employees. And that might sound big and scary, but for study abroad and exchange students, we make it feel a lot smaller for you in that you have a dedicated study abroad advisor within our team, which coming for a semester program from Creighton, that would be me. And that's your point of contact right from the point that Creighton nominates you through your enrollment, your application, your enrollment, you're settling in for orientation and throughout the semester. So no matter what is going on, you have a person at USyd that you can contact for any guidance that you might need. We do have quite a few notable alumni, several prime ministers, lots of Olympians, Rhodes Scholars, astronauts as well. So one of which is still actually teaching in our aeronautical department, which is quite fun. And depending who you're asking, we're in the top 2 or 3 in Australia and generally in the top 40 to 50-ish in the world as well. So no matter what you study, you'll have a great academic experience along the way. Now we will touch a bit on COVID health and safety because we know this is quite an important topic on everyone's mind these days. So in Australia, COVID was first confirmed in late January, but after strict lockdown methods and controls has been seen relatively few cases compared to the rest of the world. In large part due to testing being free and accessible to everyone, regardless of your visa status or your health insurance status, and typically only takes up to 2 days, maybe 3 in peak periods to get a text message with your result. And across New South Wales, which is the state where the University of Sydney is located, we've seen very little community transmission, with most new cases coming from people traveling from interstate or from Australians that are returning home from overseas and they're in hotel quarantine. So you can see there's a link there in the bottom of the screen that is the Australian government website about response to coronavirus. The University of Sydney also has its own website as well, which we'll show in a slide. I might, Kelly, I'll pop these links in an email to you today so you can share them with anyone that might like to have a look. Here's just a quick snapshot of case numbers from late August. The vast majority have been in Victoria, some in New South Wales, and then less in the other states. And throughout the whole COVID period, the University of Sydney is closely keeping an eye on what's going on nationally, but in New South Wales and within Sydney as well. And we have a website there that includes lots of information about how the university's responded, adjustments to classes, and those sorts of things. If you Google USyd coronavirus, that should be one of the first links that pops up. In terms of on campus, a number of measures are put in place to help keep everyone as safe as possible, including physical distancing measures. There's lots of signage on the floor and in the common areas and classroom buildings, but there's also class timetabling done in a way so that everyone involved can adhere to physical distancing, keeping that about 1.5 meters apart. Currently, throughout 2020, lectures have been recorded with optional in-person attendance. That way, if students aren't able to come to campus or don't feel comfortable being in a large lecture theater, those lectures are recorded and viewable remotely. And there's different mechanisms to capture ongoing participation in terms of tutorial classes or discussion boards and things within Blackboard. And then there's also enhanced levels of cleaning around campus as well, with hand sanitizer stations in every common area and daily cleaning of campus in compliance with the advice from the Chief Medical Officer. We take primarily, as a university, take guidance from New South Wales Health because they have authority over the public health response in our state. Now we'll move into a bit about application logistics. So if you're looking at the first half of 2021, you may already be partway through the start of this process. If you're looking ahead to the fall, you maybe have a little more time, but always good to plan ahead. So the first thing to keep in mind is thinking about which semester or program you'd like to join us for. So at USyd, our semester 1 roughly aligns with your spring semester, and our semester 2 roughly aligns with your fall, with some 5 and 6 week short-term programs there in your summer break. It is winter in Australia, but winter in Australia is pretty much like a nice spring day in most places in the US. So it's still quite a comfortable, nice time to be in Sydney. And for the time being, we do recommend that students hold off on making travel plans or any other non-refundable financial commitments until after we're able to share a bit more detail about program logistics, arrival date and whatnot, and as from the USyd side of things, but also from Creighton as well. But in the meantime, you can work through the application process, which the first step is completing that internal application to Creighton. And I believe Kelly, as the students, should reach out to you if they have questions with that.
Yes, I will be your advisor. If you're looking at spring 2021, you'll make an appointment with me on Creighton Connect. That's part of the application process. A meeting with me is required. Once you're all done with your application, it's due to Creighton by October 1st.
So you've got a little bit more time, which is great. And the more time you have to plan ahead at any stage is good. Then once Creighton evaluates your application, if it's approved, they'll formally nominate you to the University of Sydney. And at that point, I'll reach out to you to say hi, and as well as sharing a detailed application guide that gives you step-by-step instructions for how to complete every section of the application. Things that helpful to have ready to upload is a copy of your transcript, which can be a PDF of an electronic transcript. That's totally fine. We also ask for evidence of your identity. Whilst we prefer a copy of your passport photo page, if you don't have a current valid passport, you could also instead put a copy of your driver's license or birth certificate. And we also ask that you have ready a list of units of study that you are interested in studying. After you apply, we process your application, typically within a week, maybe 2 weeks in peak periods. We'll then give you housing information. When you're ready to do so, you accept your offer. For semester programs, we'll issue you an ECOE, which is a document for a student visa application. You'd then apply for and receive a visa and purchase your flights. But like we mentioned on the previous slide, for 2021, just wait for advice from both UCID and Creighton before you make any flight arrangements. A big part of that unit of the application process is thinking about what units of study you might like to study during your semester. And really good news is your decision is not final. You can make changes anywhere from that right when you've submitted your application through to the end of the first week of class. So it's totally okay if you're not 100% certain about what you'd like to study. And the really great news as well is that most of our units of study don't have enrollment limits, which means that you can have peace of mind of if it's offered that semester, it's available to study abroad students and you meet UCID requirements, you can enroll into it if you'd like. Now, news that some students may not have been expecting is that to balance that flexibility of little to no enrollment limits, timetabling works a bit differently and timetables aren't published until about a month before classes begin. So that's one reason we recommend you having a few backups on your list initially in case of timetable clashes, but it's also helpful just in case you change your mind, or maybe you find out from Creighton that there's different advice for what you can or can't study whilst you're abroad. If you have backups, it just makes those adds and drops closer to the start of the semester a bit smoother for you. Now, it is quite popular for study abroad students to add in a unit or two that's related to a topic that maybe they haven't studied before or is tricky to do at home. And one popular way to do that is to study something related to Australian Indigenous studies, which subjects can be found across anthropology, government, other humanities topics, and there's even an Aboriginal art painting class that you could opt into as well. We also have experiential electives. Now, these are units that have compulsory excursions involved, but focus on a different aspect of Australian culture, whether that's sports, the outdoors and the environment, or theatre and film. And these are facilitated in a way that you learn a lot more than you ever could if you're just kind of going in your free time to do these things. We also have interdisciplinary projects, which are collaborative projects for undergraduate students across every academic background, where you work in a small group on a real world business case or problem and present that solution to the business at the end of semester. And students in the past have found this a really great networking opportunity, and some have even used that experience in their interdisciplinary project to line up an internship for the following summer, which has been quite good. As well as studying, the US studies are quite popular for our students coming from the US too, because it can be really interesting to study about your home from a different perspective overseas. And this is across government and political science, as well as other culture and humanities type subjects as well. And we have more than 2,500 units of study on offer, which sounds like quite a lot, but we have some unit of study tools to help organize them and help you find them. But if you do need help on finding units that are of interest to you, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. Even if you're still working through that application process with Creighton, ask for some tips on how to find units related to your interest, and then I'll send you some links and remind you to touch base with Kelly about finalizing that process on the Creighton side of things. As you're searching, keep in mind how our unit of study levels and codes work. So if you're currently studying your bachelor degree, you'd be looking at undergraduate units, which are coded from 1,000 to 4,000 level. If you're currently studying a master degree, you'd be looking at postgraduate units, which are 5,000 level and above. Now, our grading scale is a little bit different than what many students are used to. Whilst we use a 0 to 100 point scale, the numbers mean very different things. So at UCID, a passing mark is a 50 or above, and a majority of students in a unit of study will typically end up in the pass or the credit range, with some in distinction and just a handful in that high distinction range. And it's important that you check with Creighton for how these will translate back to home. Now, we've had Creighton students joining us for several years, so there would be a bit of a history there of how a pass or a credit or a distinction translates back, and touch base with Kelly if you're not sure how to find that information. Yeah. Another way students can add a kind of a practical experience to their study abroad semester is our Arts 2600 internship program. Now, with the interdisciplinary projects, you're working in a group of other students and presenting that solution to the business at the end of semester. Whereas with Arts 2600, you're embedded in a particular industry or research placement where you undertake a minimum of 120 hours throughout the semester. It's available in all of our programs, as well as there's a rigorous academic component there as well, which includes a series of professional development workshops, along with some reflective tasks and journals and discussions, and a final project report at the end of the semester. Some of the placements this is just an example, a snapshot of some of our popular placements across a range of different industries, including Modibody, which is a fashion company. We've got the Giants, which is an Australian rules football. There's also professional bodies for things like accounting and finance, and then a range of charities and non-governmental organizations as well. And our internship coordinator really investigates each placement before we place a student to make sure that you're getting a valuable experience. You're not going to be just fetching coffee and making copies all day. You'll really get an insight into what working in that industry is like. Now, we know no matter what you choose to study, you'll have a great academic experience, but we really want to make sure that you have a great time as well. And we try to make sure you have lots of unforgettable experiences throughout the semester, one of which may include a Harbor Bridge climb. This is a picture from partway up the Harbor Bridge. If you book through our office, we have designated days where we get about a 30% discount code, which is quite exciting. But we know life happens and unexpected things might come up throughout the semester, and we are here to help you navigate all of these support services at the University of Sydney. So study abroad students have access to all the same support services that a degree student would. And we know particularly things like doctor and the counselor and registering for disability services, which is our academic accommodations. Those things work a lot differently here than most students find at home. So we find that's where we assist a lot of students in finding what they need. But definitely don't be afraid to reach out at any point, whether you're preparing to come or throughout your semester, so that we can link you up with the support that you need. Now, a big part of planning for an abroad program is thinking about your budget. And these prices here are estimates in Australian dollars. So at the moment, the exchange rate is about $1 Australian to about 73 or so US cents, which means you can kind of chop off about 25% off the numbers here, and that's roughly what it is in US dollars. For housing, some options are self-catered, which means you buy and cook your own food, whereas some options are catered, which means about 18 to 21 meals per week are included in your rent. So that makes up for that cost difference there. We typically estimate most students spend about $150 Australian dollars a week for food if you're living in self-catered accommodation, which isn't too much different than the cost difference. So which housing option you pick really depends on your preferences and your budget, and we'll go through all the options in a moment. Getting a cell phone sorted is quite easy. You can either bring a phone from home and pop in a SIM card, or buy a cheap phone when you get here. Public transport, like we mentioned before, quite accessible, relatively inexpensive, particularly if you're living walking distance to campus and you're only jumping on the bus or the train or the ferry kind of in the afternoons or on the weekends. Textbook costs can vary quite a bit depending on which subjects you're doing. So we recommend students wait until they've participated in the first class before they buy the textbook, just in case you change your mind about what units you're doing. And we do also have a couple of ways to help students get involved and meet other Aussies while they're settling in. The first of which is our Mates Abroad Buddy Club. And this is where we group you together with USyd students who've gone on exchange overseas and come back, and they're super keen to help you have a great experience as well. The second way we help you settle in and meet other students is our range of social events that our team organizes. On the left here, that's our Breakfast with Koalas. Not koala breakfast. We do not eat koalas. We eat kangaroos and emus and crocodiles, which you can all get on a pizza in a pub in the rocks if you're feeling adventurous in that fashion. But if you'd like to get a private tour of the wildlife zoo and have a buffet breakfast and get your koala selfie, this is the event for you. But throughout the semester, we also have several surf camps. We do a harbor cruise. We all go to a rugby or an AFL game together. And we also take advantage of the various festivals and things that are on throughout the semester as well. So here's a bit of what orientation looks like when we have it on campus. We'll welcome you in the Great Hall, or as we like to call it, our version of Hogwarts, which it really feels like Hogwarts. I don't know if Stephanie and Nick will agree. It does feel quite a lot like Hogwarts when you're in there. And part of that session involves official welcomes and things, but also an introduction to our Spirit Brothers, which is an Indigenous dance group that we work with for orientation. You'll learn a little bit about the culture and history of Indigenous Australians, and depending how close to the front you sit, you might get pulled up on stage to join in on one of the performances. We break for lunch, have a nice picnic lunch on the lawns of the quad, and this is a great chance to mix and mingle and meet other students that are coming from other countries or other universities. And every semester, students tell us they met their travel buddies and their best study abroad friends at this lunch, it's a nice chance to chat to me as well and chat to your advisor. Then we break out into our enrollment advising groups, where we talk about all of the kind of student admin side of the semester. So your timetables, adding and dropping, how to get into the Wi-Fi, get your student card, and those sorts of things. Then in the afternoon, we have a little bit of a social, relaxed kind of social event. You'll get a t-shirt, and that's your ticket to free ice cream or waffles from our food trucks. And chance to chat to other students. You may find yourself doing surfboard limbo. You can win a surf camp weekend this way. And it's also a chance to chat with your UCID advisor for any last questions that may have come up throughout the day as well. Now, throughout the semester, we do encourage students to get involved in clubs and societies. It's a great way to meet Aussies in particular. About a quarter of the clubs are sport. I don't know if Quidditch counts as a sport or not, but it's very popular. We have 3 teams now, I think, in the Quidditch team, but there's also clubs related to like academic areas of interest, cultural groups. There's a wine and cheese society, there's a chocolate society, there's a movement and dance society that's quite popular as well. So we encourage everyone to pick 2, something that's familiar, as well as something that's new and different, or maybe something you couldn't do at home. And like we mentioned, there's lots of festivals on throughout the semester. This is Night Noodle Markets, which typically is in October in Hyde Park in the city. And it's like hawker style food stands where you can try lots of different yummy, delicious foods from around the world. My personal favorite is Vivid. This is our winter light festival that takes place usually from mid-May to mid-June, where the whole of the city is lit up with all these interactive light installations that you just kind of have to walk around and have a look. Sometimes Vivid's even on campus, so here's the quad lit up as the Aboriginal flag. And a big part of your study abroad experience is where you're going to live. And all study abroad students coming to the University of Sydney are guaranteed accommodation, provided you do the right application by the right deadline, which we'll tell you after you have an offer to the program. And there's a range of options from apartment style to dorm style and residential colleges that are all not more than 10 to 15-minute walk from the middle of campus. And all as well have a mix of international and domestic students that live there. So the first option that tends to be quite popular with Creighton students is Urban Nest, which is our apartment style option. And this is a nice balance between social, and you've got some students you're living with, but you have a lot of independence as well. And there's social and study spaces included. There's 24/7 security and front desk staff. You've got a gym there that's included in your rent. And there's a range of twin share and single ensuite rooms across the various buildings. And here's an example of what one of the twin share room looks like. So you've got a roommate in this option, but you've got some personal private space there as well with that bookshelf, and you're only sharing your bathroom with that one other student. And of the other bedrooms in your apartment each have their own bathrooms as well. Here's the gym. Urbanest gym is included in your rent, and it tends to be not nearly as busy as the uni gym or other gyms in the community. So since it's included in your rent, many students find this quite convenient to just walk downstairs from their housing and there's the gym. All of the Urbanest properties also have a courtyard and barbecue area. You could get a kangaroo steak from the grocery store and try your hand at cooking it, or get your friends together and do an international night, or even maybe join in with one of the events that Urbanest runs. They often do pancake breakfast or an Aussie sausage sizzle barbecue once a week. It's just a great place to mingle and relax before or after class. The second type of housing that we offer is dorm style housing. And the first of two buildings in this category is Queen Mary Building. You can see quite a nice view from the rooftop lounge here, some barbecues. You can even do your laundry with that view of the city skyline, which good motivation to do those daily chores. But these are all single occupancy rooms, so you don't have a roommate. There's shared bathrooms on each floor and communal kitchens for cooking. And you can see a beautiful rooftop lounge, similar 24-hour reception and front desk staff, and a Res Life program. And this one's only about 5-minute walk to campus, and right near lots of restaurants and cafes that are quite popular. Here's what one of the rooms looks like at Queen Mary Building. You see, you get quite a generous size mini fridge in your room, as well as a nice size closet and space to put your luggage even on top, so you can maximize that floor space. Lots of great social spaces at Queen Mary Building. There's pool tables, ping pong tables, and it's quite popular. Students will pull up their favorite sporting event or concert or whatnot on the big screen and share it with their friends down here. And here's the kitchens as well. Very MasterChef style, if you wish. Lots of cooking stations. There's storage space for pots and pans if you don't want to keep them in your room, and also industrial fridges and freezers where you can keep any food that won't fit in your mini fridge. Regiment Building is similar accommodation style to Queen Mary Building in that it's dorm style single rooms with shared bathrooms on each floor and communal kitchens, and all the similar Res Life experiences along the way as well. The key difference with this one is it's much closer to where many business and engineering classes are located. So it's proven quite popular with students who are studying in those areas, but welcome students from any academic background. And there's an example on the top left of one of the rooms. On the right-hand side, you can see some of the social and study spaces at Regiment. And it's also very close to the uni gym. It's only a couple hundred meters from the uni gym. So if you want to join a sporting club or you would like to join the university gym, it's very, very close to where this building is. And then here's just a nice sunset movie night on the roof of Regiment, which I don't know about any of you, but I'm a sucker for a really nice sunset view. So this is a really great spot to get those. The third type of housing that is quite popular with study abroad and exchange students is our residential colleges. And these are kind of a unique concept to Australia, where a lot of students mention it being kind of a combination of feeling like Harry Potter and a bit of Greek life. So very much community focused, very lots of activities and engagement and collaboration across all the students that live here. The two main points of difference for residential colleges are that they're fully catered with 18 to 21 meals per week, and there's academic and tutoring support programs that are exclusive to the residents of these buildings. So that if you really want that sense of community and engagement and involvement with your fellow students, this is a great option. This might be an option that would suit you. And here's an example of one of the rooms at Sancta Sophia College. And here's an example of one of the formal dinners. Each residential college typically has one formal dinner a week. Some of them, if they say, it feels like Harry Potter, I had a robe to wear. But it's a great chance to mix and mingle and strategize maybe about the next inter-college sporting competition or event as well. Now here's a quick snapshot of the housing costs in 2020 rates. So you see, depending on this catered or self-catered, that affects the cost, as well as we make sure to negotiate rates that are as low as possible for study abroad students. And in most cases, these are typically a little bit less than what would be publicly available. And we also work to negotiate contracts that are about 19 to 20 weeks long, there's a little bit of a buffer at the start and the end of semester, but not lots of extra weeks that you have to pay for when you're not actually there. So the last section we'll go through is some interesting ideas of places, popular places to travel around Australia. So the first being Wineglass Bay in Tasmania. Tassie is a great place to visit if you're into outdoorsy things, whether you like hiking or rock climbing. Tasmania's got lots and lots of options for you. We also have the Great Ocean Road, which is along the scenic coastal drive between Sydney and Melbourne. If you drove straight there, it would take maybe 12 to 13 hours, but it's quite popular with students to get their friends together and do a nice coastal drive over a few days, stop at the 12 Apostles, and one of the most iconic coastal views around Australia. We also have Uluru. So if you're interested in learning more about Indigenous culture, heading out to Alice Springs and driving up to Uluru is a great option. This is one of the most culturally significant sites for Indigenous Australians. So there's really a lot to see and do when you visit around this area. And given its location, it's best to take at least 3 or 4 nights, if not a couple more, to really see and do everything there is to see. Now, at the top of my bucket list when I moved to Australia was going snorkeling and finding Nemo, and also finding our sea turtle friends here as well. It's up in far north Queensland. It's great to spend at least as well 3 or 4 nights so you can do your snorkeling and do lots of other sightseeing around there as well. And also up in far north Queensland, we have the Whitsundays, which is one of the most iconic, well-known white sand beaches in Australia, but never fear, we have enough beaches for you to go to one every day and take more than 30 years. So there's plenty of beaches to see and explore no matter where you are around Australia. And hopefully soon we'll be able to welcome you here to campus at the University of Sydney and for a great short-term program or semester. So that's all of the information I have for you today. So I've got my email address up there on the screen if you have any UCID related questions, particularly surrounding units of study. And yeah, does anyone have any questions for me? Or were the alumni students, were they going to share a bit of their experience now?
Yeah, it would be, do you think maybe you want to do Q&A first, see if anyone has questions, and then do the student experience?
Sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. One student, Brooklyn, in the chat asked, she's a nursing student, so next fall is when she'll be studying abroad. And so she asked, when should she start working on her application? And I said, for everyone's awareness, fall 2021 applications at Creighton will open in December 2020. And your application to Creighton will be due on March 1st, 2021. And Kristen, did you have an idea of when those would be due to, when they'd be applying to UCID in the spring?
Yeah. So when we receive students' nomination details from Creighton, we'll reach out with the application deadline and with the application guide, and we typically give kind of a soft deadline. It's a kind of a rolling deadline up until the end of April. So if you're nominated in mid-March, we typically ask you to submit it maybe by the end of March and check in with you. If you need a little bit more time throughout April, that's okay. But we do recommend to do your UCID application relatively close in time to when you're nominated by Creighton, so you can keep things moving along, and the more time you have for your visa application and your housing and things, the better. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other students have questions? You can type it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask either Kristen or myself. All right, well, it looks like no questions right now. Stephanie or Nick, who wanted to go first and talk about your experiences? We have with us, you guys, 2 fall 2019, I think you both were in University of Sydney, semester study abroad students who went to UCID and came back to Creighton. So they're here to talk about how they experienced the Creighton in Australia program, what they liked. So yeah, whoever would like to go first, go ahead.
I can go first. So I guess a quick introduction. My name is Nicholas. I am currently a sophomore at Creighton, and I'm looking into business schools, looking at 2 majors there. And so I guess I mean, me and Stephanie were kind of saying over the text, like going through those photos that she was showing us of urbanettes. God,
Yeah.
it takes us back for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy. It's a year ago now.
Yeah.
It's definitely been one of the highlights of my life, just exploring Australia. It's definitely a trip, and it's like something you just got to do. And I feel like it's underrated at times. And so I feel there's a lot really to do, in Australia, on top of the traveling aspect of it, and then also just in Australia itself, like in Sydney, go to different beaches just all around Sydney any day you'd like. Bus systems, train systems, too easy to use, and it's just been an amazing experience there for sure.
Awesome.
My experience, first of all, I'm Stephanie. I'm a sophomore at Creighton too. I'm a neuroscience major with Spanish and anthropology minors, and I went to Sydney in the fall of 2019 with Nick. My biggest takeaway from that entire trip was just how much freedom we had. We, like, from the start, we just like cooked our own meals, but then again, like UCID is a huge campus, and there was just so much to do, both on and off campus at UCID, and then also all throughout Sydney. So that was just like a whole new experience of just being honestly a freshman at college, and then having so much freedom that a lot of my peers honestly didn't have back at their schools in the US or here. We also did get to do a lot of traveling around. I actually went to Tasmania and Cairns. Cairns is
very good.
I'm sorry?
I was just saying that's awesome. That's good.
I loved it. I actually went to Hobart, Tasmania, so I didn't get to see Wineglass Bay, but we went to a lot of national parks around the area. And then Cairns, we went and snorkeled the Great Barrier Reef, and both were just amazing experiences overall.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. Maybe I'll ask Nick and Stephanie, did either you or both of you take an intro to Indigenous history course while you were there? And could you speak on that? Because I process the transcripts that come back to Creighton for study abroad, and I see that class come up a lot. So if you could talk about how cool that class was.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not your typical history class. I mean, when you're, learning about not only like the history, it's not just the history of Australia, but the history of the people before you, but when it was called Australia. And so it was definitely an eye-opening kind of class to kind of just have a different perspective on history rather than the standard high school class and kind of things like that. I was also asked by Miss Jill to talk about one of the things I was nervous about too when coming here. And it was, or not coming here, going to Australia. And so I definitely think, like what Stephanie said, it was the freedom aspect of it. It is, you are kind of thrust into your own, like you have control of your own life now. You got to go buy food, you got to get to classes, pick your own trips, kind of everything. It's freeing, but it's also kind of restricting. Like you have a lot to kind of organize and keep yourself together. And so I definitely think that was kind of one thing that I was kind of scared about at first, of whether or not I'd do that well enough. But in the end, I think, just having the support there and also just having the support on campus as well kind of helped with that for sure. So.
Cool.
For me, first of all, for Indigenous history, I also took, along with that class, I took sociology, and both helped me really understand the culture of Australia a lot better. Sorry.
Yeah.
Being completely honest, I'd taken a lot of U.S. history courses throughout high school, but I really didn't get as interested in U.S. history until I started learning about Australian history, and then I kind of started connecting everything. So it definitely did give me a new perspective, even coming back to the U.S. about Australia, and it was really interesting. For Lizzie, one thing that I was nervous about before going to Australia was how I was going to be able to fit the courses in with my major and be able to get in all of the classes that I need. They worked really well with us in making sure that the classes we did at UCID would transfer back to Creighton and then count for something. A lot of them ended up being my gen eds, but I really enjoyed those courses a lot that I was able to take.
Awesome. Cool. Any other final things about UCID or Australia that you wanted to share with any interested applicants, and or do any applicants?
You froze there for a second, Kelly.
Oh, I did? It's so
Yeah.
weird because I can't tell if I'm frozen.
Yeah.
If you could just take any final questions you have for us, let us know. Otherwise, you can always email us at studyabroadadvisor@creighton.edu. You can email Kristen Johnson at UZID. I'm sure Nick and Stephanie would be happy to talk further if you want to give them an email and ask some questions about the program. But any final questions?
All good.
No? All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, Nicholas, Kristen, Jill,
Yeah.
and our final attendee, Brooklyn. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to attend this info session.
No worries.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.